hit subscribe, hit the bell. I'm thinking about potentially revealing my face if we get a certain number of subscribers. I think it could happen very soon. Anyway, today I have something so exciting for you. I just got into this wormhole, like, about how the Victorians dealt with death, how they, like, buried their dead, and also all of their weird rituals that they had. To understand why these people were so freaking weird about the dead and about how they handled death, we need to first understand everything that these people went through, because it is a ride. So buckle up, because we're about to talk about how the evolution of burying the dead impacted the Victorian era, and honestly how we're living today. It's insane. I can't believe, like, I mean, I can believe it, but it's just so wild and so barbaric, the stuff that used to happen. So let's get into this. Okay, we're gonna start right before the Victorian era, and we're gonna start with body number 1. There are 4 bodies we're gonna talk about today. Body number 1, this is Elizabeth Beck. She died in 1827. Homegirl was only 21 years old. She was very young. But you know, people didn't really live super long back then anyway, but still tragic. So she was buried in a graveyard in Norfolk. This is in Europe. This is in Britain. And it wasn't long after Elizabeth was buried that rumors started to spread that, like, that she was taken by body snatchers, or these people that were body snatching. They were also referred to as resurrectionists. Yeah, resurrectionists. So how about that? Like, and how would you feel if, like, you just buried your daughter, or like your sister, or your family member, or your wife, or whatever? She was probably married. I don't know. They married so young back then. But, like, how would you feel if you were just, like, at the freaking bakery trying to get your morning bagel, and someone's like, yo, did you hear that, like, that girl Elizabeth, yeah, she's not in the grave anymore, some dude, like, body snatched her, and you'd be like, excuse me? So as you can imagine, like, the community went wild, and her family was like, what? Like, no, we need to get to the bottom of this, because so many people were talking about it that it began to feel like it was not just a rumor. So the community went to the graveyard, and they went to dig up Elizabeth's grave. And to their unfortunate surprise, Mama's grave was empty. There was no Elizabeth in the grave. She was gone. So this prompted other people in the community that had recently buried their dead. They're like, well, what if she's gone? Like, I better make sure Uncle Herman is in his grave too. So people were flocking to the graveyard and helping each other, and they were pulling up the bodies, and, like, oh my god, Uncle Herman's missing, oh my god, Aunt Betty's gone. Like, people were missing. Someone was going into the graveyard and snatching these bodies. People were outraged, to say the least. So the community, like, went on a witch hunt, and they actually caught the body snatchers, and these dudes went inches by 14 inches by what, like 2 feet tall, 2 feet 3 inches tall. That's not very big. That's like a really nice like boot box or something. I don't know. It's like one of like the like a bigger size Amazon box, but not ginormous. And they had been putting bodies in these boxes with the sawdust, and were shipping them to London. How were they getting the bodies in there? They were cramming them in. They may have had to like saw off limbs and stuff, but they were just cramming them in there and sending them to London. Dun dun dun. Now what was going on in London? Well, let me tell you. Who was buying the bodies? Just when you thought you could trust your doctors. The doctors at the English medical schools were in desperate need of bodies for dissection, and there really weren't any donors. All that they were given were like the guys that were getting hung in the town square, so they could maybe get like 30 bodies a year. That's not enough to teach a bunch of medical students how to dissect a body properly. So they did what they had to do. Just go pay someone to snatch some bodies, and like, let me tell you, these people were getting so much money for snatching these bodies. Like, they were making bank, and not just the bodies, like the teeth. Wow. Teeth were all the rage. Why dentists were buying teeth? Because rich people were buying dentures made of human teeth. How do you not get possessed if you have a mouth full of human teeth that are not yours in your mouth? Don't you think that's like asking for it, especially if they came from like, you don't know how those teeth got into your mouth. I'm just saying. But I guess if you're rich, you don't care. I don't know. I don't know. But needless to say, these body snatchers were making a lot of money. And here's the other part. Body snatching, not illegal, not even illegal, because bodies were not necessarily property, so you can't steal something that doesn't belong to anyone else. Messed up, right? I know. Now, 1832, Parliament changed the law, and they enacted a thing called the Anatomy Act, and that actually legalized a better way to supply bodies to these doctors instead of this body snatching business. So, I can't talk. The body snatching homeboys were out of luck at this point. I mean, I'm sure they still made money on the side, but you know. So, what did the act say? Well, now, what they said was, oh, well, you know, poor people, they can't afford to have a burial, or like didn't have means of support. Like, if they died, then like, we're not going to bury them for free. The city's not going to bury them for free, so send those poor people straight to be dissected by the doctors. Problem solved. Yeah. Messed up, I know. So, here's the issue. Like, now you've got people, like poor people in jail, poor people in poorhouses, which if you don't know what a poorhouse is, we'll have to do like a whole video on that, because those are like really crazy and interesting to me. People would basically like live for free, but they just work there. And poor people like dying in hospitals, like they die, just ship them off, let them go get dissected. Now, here's the problem. A majority of people back then were Christians, and Christian belief, or like based off of Christian belief, and Christian belief says that like you need to be fully buried in the ground to go to heaven. So people were freaking out. Like, imagine being poor and being like, oh, great. Like, it doesn't matter what I do in life. If I can't make enough money to be properly buried, I'm not gonna go to heaven anyway. So I'm sure like that probably even had like an effect on crime and stuff, right? Like, if you have no chance of going into the kingdom of heaven, then what's to stop you from doing anything else? Like, you're screwed. It's so sad. And like, people believed this. They were like, well, 100%. That is a ton of people. A ton of people. Urban crowding was a big thing. It was just starting to begin. Like in full force. Rude. So, what does that mean? Well, the more people that are living in a city, the more people are, yes, dying in the city. That's right. Good job. So, this brings us to our second body, which is Mr. Foster. Now, the new problem, not only were people having an issue with living in the city on top of each other, but inner city burial ground crowding was becoming a thing. And there was a gentleman named George Walker who actually wrote about this, so this is where we get this account. But at that time, most burial grounds were attached to churches. And when this Mr. Foster died, his family and his friends, they went to the cemetery to go and inspect the grave before he was put into it. And when they showed up, there were two grave diggers there. Let's call them Harry and Mo. And Harry and Mo had only dug a hole that was 2.5 feet deep. And they were like, thanks, dudes, but that's not going to fit a casket. That's not deep enough. And they're like, oh, not deep enough for you. Well, guess we're just going to have to keep going. They look into the ground, and what did they see? Below this 2.5 feet, there was another coffin. And without hesitating, the guys took an axe, crunched into the coffin. They opened it. They pulled the coffin out, and they dumped the corpse out, and then this corpse, which still rotting flesh, they started stomping it into the ground, as if it was a piece of flame from a campfire. Needless to say, Mr. Foster's friends were horrified, and even after that, that freed up a couple more feet, but this hole was still not even 5 feet deep. So the grave diggers proceeded to pull out 2 more coffins. They pulled 3 coffins out in total, dumped them out, stomped these people into the ground so they could give him a proper burial. And even more disturbing than that, the dates that were listed on these coffins said that these people had not even died more than 5 years before Mr. Foster did. So what does that mean? There's not even a guarantee that Mr. Foster is going to be able to actually be buried in the ground. He's not going to stay in the ground. He's going to actually also probably be pulled out at some point and stomped into the earth like a piece of garbage. Isn't that messed up? So now, even the rich were like, well, shit, you're gonna bury me, and yeah, maybe I can find the kingdom of heaven, but then you're gonna pull me out. What does that mean? Am I gonna get sucked down to hell that moment in time? It was unsettling, to say the least. So, it makes you wonder also, that's one example, but realistically, where were all these bodies going? There's another encounter that's gonna make you even more disturbed and upset. There is a chapel called Eon Chapel, and in 1822, this chapel, it was built across an open sewer, and this chapel offered to give people burial space for money. Obviously, this was a very good cash cow for these churches, giving burial space. You could make a pretty penny off of it. This church had space for maybe a third. This burial space had no more room than to maybe house 1,300 bodies. That's 1,300 for those of you that have trouble with counting, like me. But the I'm not gonna say the right term, but the main pastor of this church, the deacon, I don't know, so he promised 10,000 to 12,000 people burial spaces. Okay, 1,300 what was the new solution? Because, okay, we solved that, but you're still in a place to bury people. So this was the birth of cemeteries. And, like, so pretty much burial grounds, most of the time at that point, were connected to churches. This brought in cemeteries, which, as we know today, you go to a cemetery, it's not necessarily attached to an actual church. They will have chapels on them, and that was actually, chapels were put on cemetery land because they wanted people to feel like their loved ones were being buried in a sacred place, that this was okay. It wasn't the church, but it was a chapel. That's why you will even see, like, on the East Coast, they have cemeteries to this day that are, like, specific religious cemeteries, and an actual church is not on the land, but there are chapels. It's kind of crazy. But you also actually, like, not far from our house even, like, there's a church, that there's lots of churches out here that have graveyards attached to them. Now, this is America. That was my shoes. Now, this is America, but I mean, I'm sure that it affected us probably not too long after things were happening over there. So now, who could afford the cemeteries? Because you know they were going to be profiting and, like, capitalizing on this. Only rich people. I don't know what that meant for the poor people. Maybe more people were just getting donated to doctors at this point. But people were still freaking out. Like, even the rich people, they're like, yeah, but I don't want to be buried so far from the church. Like, how do I know I'm going to get into the kingdom of heaven? How do I know Uncle Frankie's going to, like, make it to the promised land? And it still was very problematic. They needed a selling point. Like, how are we going to get people in? Well, then, to the luck of the cemeteries, the Duke of Sussex, who is the son of King George III, died. I mean, rest your soul, my friend. So, the Duke of Sussex was married to a commoner, and he wanted to be buried with his wife like a good man. But because she's a commoner, they're like, well, if you want to be buried with her, you can't both be buried in the royal cemetery. So, you're gonna have to be buried, like, you guys can go find some common folk area to get buried at. But where did that leave him? Well, they had to put him in a cemetery. This was a big news for the cemeteries. It was like having a celebrity. I mean, it was the king's son. Like, this was like having freaking, like, Madonna or someone, like, buried in the cemetery down the street, and then you're just like, oh, oh yeah, I have a plot there. I'm in Madonna's cemetery. Like, it was a big freaking deal. People were flocking to the cemetery. They were going apeshit, and it was to the point that they weren't even waiting to buy plots for people. They weren't waiting for people to die to buy plots. They're like, oh, I better get my reservation in now so I know I'll be at the cemetery looking cool. I'm gonna be down there next to the Duke of Sussex, next to Madonna, next to whoever. Like, this prompted people to buy these plots ahead of time. Crazy. So, it was a very good thing. And this led to people being more comfortable with being buried at the cemeteries at this point. So, let's talk about, sorry you're shaking, let's talk about Victorian funerals, because those were now becoming a big deal with the cemeteries. Like, we're talking outfits, drapes, like, even the horses pulling the carriages had outfits and plumes. It was all the rage. And in these, like, parades, these death parades, in the front of them, you would have these guys. They were called mutes. They were professional mourners. Like, that was their job. That they could just look solemn and, like, just, like, I could never be a professional mourner. I'm too animated. But could you imagine just, like, professional mourners? What the fuck? It was a job. Hey, good on you, dudes. Everything was just, like, to the T. Like, everything, like, was pulled by horses and carriages, and it was pretty much like a giant display. And the bigger the funeral, the bigger deal you were, the millions around an amphitheater. So I'm sure all the ladies were there tossing their coins or their whatever, their corsets. Like, yeah. So of course, you know, this guy like had a gaudy ass grave. Like, it was elaborate. It had these sphinxes. It had these like ringmaster gloves carved into it. It was painted at the time. Like, not one thing on this grave was like religious. It was all very pagan in appearance, but it just kind of showed you that now it's like, it's kind of crazy. Like, people are now bearing their family away from the church, and not only that, you're mixing in people with different beliefs and different values. So it also, in an odd way, kind of began to divide people from the church a little bit. Not a lot, but you understand what I'm saying. So, in the 1880s, the value of land collapsed, and now poor people could also afford to bury their families. Yay! We love that. Love that for them. And that means that the rich people, like, you know, the book The Sneetches, like, they had the stars upon stars, and now all of a sudden, these poor people are coming in with stars on their bellies, and they're like, whoa, hold on. This is not cool anymore. And the trend of the fab funerals began to diminish. Just not as elaborate as they used to be. And that means something else is going to have to change now, right? Because now everyone can go in funeral. Like, more people can be buried properly. Well, this brings us to our next body. The body of Jesus Christ. His father. You may know him, or you may not. Dr. William Price. Yeah, you heard me right. This man named his son Jesus Christ. So, before we get into his son, let's talk about William Price for a second. William Price, well, we'll talk about his son's body, but he buried his son according to the rites of his own religion, which did not include an actual burial. So, William Price, this dude had his own statue in Wales, so he had, like, clearly some sort of, like, effect on the people there, but at the time, like, people thought he was a weirdo. He was a surgeon, but he would dress very eccentrically. He wore these, like, wild, like, he'd wear animal pelts on his head, and, like, he was just a goofball. And this guy thought that, like, he was saying some very radical things at the time, like marriage was slavery for women, eating meat brought out the beast in man, wearing socks so bad for your health, vaccination, slaughtering of children. He was also caught twice for manslaughter, and he thought the burial, apparently, quite frankly, was an assault upon the earth. He thought that Christianity was a lot of moonshine. This man was a druid. He did not get married, and he had a crap ton of children. He was like, you could think of him as like an early hippie, very into the free love thing. And this dude, at the age of 84, had a kid with his housekeeper, and thus Jesus Christ Superstar was born. But Jesus was a sickly baby, unfortunately, and Jesus died in 1884 at 5.5 months old. And what would follow? Well, homeboy William Price, he carried out a ritual that everyone in the town found insanely disturbing. It caused an eruption. He waited until Sunday night, when all the churchgoers would be leaving, and his house was on a hill above the town of the Welsh countryside, and he knew that when these people left church, they would have the perfect view of what he was doing on that hill. He built a fire, and as the people were coming out, he cremated the body of his baby boy for all to see in this fire. And as you can imagine, these people are coming out of church like, this is blasphemy. No. It's one thing, like, to get shipped off because you can't afford to get buried, but you are desecrating a body. That baby's not gonna go to heaven. Like, this is this up, I have another I have another video for you. And we're going to talk about Victorian funerals and also just all the weird stuff Victorian people did, because, like, they were obsessed with death. I don't know if you know this, you probably do, or maybe you don't. Like, they were oddly obsessed with death and did a lot of really weird stuff. But understanding all of this crap that they went through is going to make it make so much more sense why these people were doing some oddball crap with their dead bodies of their family members and, like, pieces of their body. Like, it. Next video. So hey, thank you for coming. I hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to give a thumbs up if you loved the video. Follow, subscribe, hit the bell, you know the whole deal. Namaste and good night. And don't be afraid